What if I told you that in this box there's a new range of paints that can be used normally and as contrast paints?
It's tabletop time. I'm Murray, and today we're going to be looking at the new super duper top secret Broken Anvil paint range. I had no idea that these existed because they're top secret, but together we're going to find out just what these are about, what new features they brought to the party, and this video is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. But more then later. Let's have a look at what they've prepared for us in these lovely little gradients. So, to the painting table. I spat everywhere. Oh, it's on camera. Crap.
We have primary colors and then a mix of blacks, whites, and a couple of extras, but it's kind of just like a grayscale pack here. So let's start with green and yellow. All of these have been arranged so they're in a cohesive palette, complete with warm and cool colors. There's an emphasis on that apparently. Let's grab the reds. See if you can see that there. You can see that we can move from quite ochre down to it's a fairly cool brown. Ooh, that is a deep red burgundy. Let's get this open and let's have a closer look. Ugh. Open, I command you, I'm on camera. So we've got some fairly pastel colors. I should also point out that apparently these are just temporary droppers. These are not how the product will be packaged, apparently. These are just testers. In fact, the colors are just sort of placeholder names as well. We're just going with the product itself, the actual paint. Yeah, look at that red. That's really cool, all right. Definitely have to look at that one. But I think the coolest thing about all this is that there's actually a really strong complementary green. Just straight up green. I want green. I don't want 12 colors of leathery green for orc skin or goblin skin. I just want green. That looks like the ticket. So I don't know. I'm personally already pretty excited and interested to see what this has to offer. I have a super secret script to go with the super duper super secret paints. Basic color names. So they put emphasis on their white and black range. This one, which follows the color temperature system. For example, if you're working with a cool tone color using the cool tone white or cool tone black, to adjust it will help maintain the color temperature without desaturating the color significantly. Okay, cool. As opposed to just adding a bad and black to whatever, which of course desaturates everything. We have additive white and black, which are pure single pigments. These can be used for value shifts or to desaturate color. Okay. A lot of emphasis on pigmentation here, which I like. Coming up with these paints, they're all arranged in a nice gradient for their, established color swatches, and this is just tester range. With these, it's all about maintaining both the pigmentation, but also the cool and warm tones. So I think that's really attractive to more artistically minded people. For those of you who just want color, I think this affords a bit more range and variety, which might interest you. There's some really cool things about these paints, which I'm going to get to eventually, but for now, I'm just going to dive in and dabble with the strength of the colors themselves. I'm just going to open up a few of them here and we'll look into that.
This video is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends, and this year marks their 4th anniversary, which is a cause for celebration. And when it comes to celebrations, I always like to have my mate Herndig by my side. He's a mean dwarf, but he can party with the best of them. But where would we be without the finger food? I always like to supply a good bit of garlic bread for my parties, and Jintori has a real fascination with cutting them up with that amazing sword of his. In fact, he's become quite obsessed with it. Ever been invited to one of these parties, he just likes to cut up the bread. But now he supplies the bread himself, so we're all good. But you could argue that the most important thing about a party is that your drinks stay cool. And I'm not talking about ice in a bucket. I'm talking about Whirlem Frost King and that incredible icy aura of his. But when you really want to kick things off, it's time to start dancing. And who's better than a little bit of anger? Or a lot of anger, as I like to say. Now, that guy can dance with the best of them. Just look at that athletic body. Now, if you want to make some friends like these yourself, all you need to do is download Raid Shadow Legends, sporting over 650 unique characters. This is a game full of strategy, competing against your mates, with your mates, and taking home just a bit of tournament prize for yourself. So, what are you waiting for? All the links are in the description below, and if you sign up now with our QR code, you will get yourself all sorts of freebies to start off with, including the champion Jotun, 100,000 silver, 50 gems, and 2 epic skill tones. And then to get all your goodies, all you need to do is collect them in-game from the main screen by pressing a button. But why stop there? You could also get yourself the Forge Pass if that tickles your fancy and you want to take things a bit further. So, sign up today and have yourself a riot with Raid in their 4th anniversary. See you there. Alright, dig. Feather up, will ya?
Okay, so I want to keep this bit short and sweet, but I want to look at the different whites and their temperate values. I think that's really interesting and kind of relevant to the rest of the range, so may as well start with it. Now you can see here that the cool white is actually really sort of an icy blue, which is kind of just nice on its own. The warm white is just slightly an off-white. It's almost ivory, but not quite. Again, these are really nice colors just in their own right, so it'll be really interesting. The pure white, as you can imagine, is just flat white, but it's actually quite watery, so it'll be interesting to see how that mixes. Plain white is sort of notorious for poor mixing. But let's see how these whites actually affect paint. I've grabbed a hot red here, and I'm just gonna mix that with each of these whites here. I'm not gonna mix it with each of these tones here and just see how the values shift.
Okay, so we've learned that you can mix white with a color and you can change the value of it depending if it was warm or cool. However, if you're not into color theory, that might not tickle your fancy. So we're going to step things up and paint a miniature now. I'm going to use just primary colors. I'm going to see how the colors actually go down. It's probably the most important thing to hobbyists. So let's tackle that one. I'm trying to be educational and entertaining here. Let's put some paint on the model and let's go. Leaves the frame ominously.
Now, Broken Anvil has been nice enough to package some of their own in-house miniatures with this paint bundle, so that's what I'm going to be painting for this entire video. So if any of these miniatures interest you, maybe go check out their stuff. So I've just thrown down the primary colors in 2 different hues, as you can see, and I'm just going to mix them around, and I want to see just how much the pigmentation retains itself as I mix these more and more. And also what interesting colors I can get from these. I'm focusing mostly on green and reds here. Green because I'm really obsessed with finding a really nice green in my paint ranges, and also red because red loses its values and becomes uncontrollable very quickly if you're not taking care.
Okay, that's enough mixing colors on the palette. Let's see how well they go over the actual miniature. Straight over a black base coat. I just applied my green straight to the brand new red grass painting lamp. You can hear my reactions as I hit record. Oh, okay. Okay, so it's pretty smooth. About the consistency, I want to say, of any standard brand range, probably like a layer paint from Citadel, but it has the coverage, not quite of a base Citadel range, but it's pretty good. Like a quick little second coat and then it's good, it's opaque. Go for a red interior to the cloak, because, you know, red's pretty notorious for not going down very smoothly or requiring quite a few coats. Right, so it's not Citadel, what used to be called their foundation paint range. You know, went on pretty well. I think Citadel's pretty renowned for how well their red goes down. They've got that pretty much nailed. The vibrancy of this, even in like a single patchy first coat on the black, is... Let's get that in focus. I'm surprised how good the pigmentation is. Let's continue on a little bit and we'll pick back up.
So despite my misgivings of the first coat of red going down a bit patchily as you would expect, it's fairly thin, it's going on black. But this is just the second coat I'm doing right now, and this red is powerful. It's really strong, as you can see, and just a little bit incredible. So I'm gonna just go from here and try out all the different paints, layering with them and highlighting, and just see what we can come up with here. Since the interior of the cloak was a really strong red, I'm going to do a really cold color on the outside, starting with a purple, and I'm gonna just establish some midtones of blues and then blend my way back down again, just seeing how those colors will play with each other. Now I mixed up a single brown for the gloves and basically the rust for the chainmail, but as you can see, they look really different because I added either a cold or hot yellow to them to differentiate them. And you can already see the amount of difference that color temperatures can have in differentiating parts of your miniature. For the metal components, I'm going to start with the darkest blue that I've been provided and just mix in more and more of the cold white that I have. And I'm just going to build up a very simple and quick non-metallic style on the metal parts just to see how that turns out. As you can see, it's really nicely playing off the insanely hot red of the cloak. And just to finish it off, some really nice warm yellows put into a gold hilt for the sword.
That's not bad. I quite enjoyed using those. And you can see with the cold whites used on the steel contrasting with the warm whites on the sort of gold pommel and hilt on the sword, works really well. I'm really digging this. But What if I told you they can also be contrast paints? I'm gonna have a little play. I know that they can be used like this. I've been informed they can be used like this, but I haven't tested on anything, so we're just gonna go straight into it. I have another little character, so we're just gonna go straight for some contrast.
One thing I'm immediately noticing with these paints is that they have a really, really high surface tension. It's kind of weird. You put it down and it's almost like it's hydrophobic. It just sort of sits there and sort of scrunches up a little bit. But once you move it around a bit in that area, you sort of need to work it in a little bit, and then it just goes really nicely. And there you can see it really happening there. It's just sort of shrinking and acting weird. It's kind of like that I haven't washed the resin or something. It's almost that effect. But again, once I start moving it around, it behaves a lot nicer. And it isn't really pooling anywhere. Usually with standard Citadel contrast paints, you have to come back and suck up any excess because it'll just leave these really dark pools and builds up. And you don't want that, but these paints don't seem to be doing it. I'm just going to put in a little cheeky wet blend here on the knives to see how that works, and finish off the base by just putting down some colors. As I wasn't really happy with this really light color that I've done, and I feel at this point that I'm actually putting on the paints too thinly, so I'm going to get this darker blue and just really saturate the base of the model with that, and we'll see how that turns out.
Okay, so on a whim, I just went over the fairly pale blue flagstone base on this model, and I've just layered on a really dark blue as the sort of contrast medium style, and really dumping it on really works for these. The logic in my mind was that, I'm putting it on fairly thinly and it's peeling away and showing some of the white. So what if I do it on really heavily? And that really seems to work. I'm getting some really nice, saw better on the other camera, some really nice tonal gradations, and like I'm getting the contrast effect as advertised. I think that's actually the way to apply these in that manner. Basically what I've been doing over the rest of the model, I guess, is more or less a heavy glaze rather than anything else than a wash. And this is a little bit crazy, but I actually think that these paints are really good for beginners and experienced painters. And here's my logic. These can be used as really beginner level contrast paints that you can just learn how to paint with them, and you get that sort of feel, that vibe, that quick accessibility into painting models and getting them on the table, so you can play 40k or Dungeons and Dragons real quick. But then beginners, they're getting straight into the hobby, and you need materials, you need lots of paint. But when you're getting into the hobby, you don't have anything. You need all the stuff, you need all the equipment, you need lots of paint. And most people getting into the hobby don't want to buy, I have to buy the base coats, the layer paints, and all the contrasts as well. And they rack up really quick. But these are sort of all that paint in one bundle. So you can just buy a blue and you can have the blue paint, the blue contrast, and the blue glazing medium all in one. All you need is water. You don't even need contrast medium here. It dries really smoothly. So this is really appealing for beginners. And then for experienced painters, you have this incredible smooth pigmentation, this luster of color that just goes on really nicely. Again, this 50% diluted yellow that you can see is just vibrant as hell from that distance over white. And then you got this let's call it 3 coats of red over black. It's like the vibrance of my shirt. That's crazy. Technology is just blowing my mind right now. We did not have this back when I was learning to paint the old blood red gore in the Games Workshop Citadel pots. They were a nightmare. This is fantastic. I'm gonna finish this up with my little slap-chopped dwarf with sword, and I'm going to spend the time to really try some wet blending and get the most out of these paints that I can, since these are sort of just testers that I've done so far. I'm just going to start and see where the colors take me. I hope you enjoy this part as well.
Now for my final dwarf, I'm going to really take the time and effort to see just how much I can get out of these paints. I'm going to do this guy up really nicely and just play around with all the paint techniques that I know and bring into play here. Now this dwarf has given me massive Slayer vibes from Warhammer Fantasy, so that's going to be the inspiration for this paint job. I'm going to give him really ruddy red skin, complemented with a really cool green color that I managed to mix up, and I've just applied that really thinly over his outfit. Now this dwarf is going to have some mad bling, and I'm going to paint up some really hearty and hot golds to go with him, including on his sword, which is clearly a very impressive magical weapon. I'm going to paint it up as such. And to go up against all these really warm golds, I'm going to do an incredibly dark steel color using blues for the just standard metal on him. I also want him to have a fairly venerable look around him, so I'm going to go with quite a dusty grey for his beard. He's quite old, I think, now, and I'm just going to give it some shading. Now, nothing says magical weapon like a startlingly blue blade. So I'm going to go with some really nice colors here. Just using some really thin paint, almost glazing it to shade in some non-metallic metal effects. And then I'll just layer in some highlights to follow up. Now this paint, particularly at this stage, is really thin and watery, but its surface tension is making it quite easy to move around and get where I want it to. It's not just touching the blade and then the surface tension evaporates and just spills everywhere like a wash. That's always annoying, and I'm not getting that here, which is really nice. One thing you can probably definitely see is that I'm still not really getting that full-blown contrast effect. I'm getting a really nice even glazing or just color filter over these parts that I'm mixing the water on, but where I put it on really thickly and nicely, it's a really nice foundation to start layering and shading.
And here in the wild, we can see the Patron Scroll going past, illuminating all these wonderful souls that support us every month. They are incredible people, one and all, and they get to join in on all the fun in our mini Discord channel, where we get to show each other what we've been up to, what we're planning to do, and even join in monthly for our mini review, where we get to review, critique, and encourage each other to aspire to be more amazing people. If you wish to join in on such frivolity, the links are in the description below. Now, with any paint range, I think we can all agree that no one range will supplant all the others on the market. And they probably shouldn't. But this paint range by Broken Anvil has some really exceptional little colors in it, and it's just a great little product. And I would encourage anyone to just go and try some of it. And how can you try some of this, you might ask? Well, their Kickstarter will be going live very soon, so go and follow their socials to find out more. In fact, if you want to see more art with their paints, all of their range has been painted using this range since February on their Patreon. So there's even more reason to go and check them out. And even in the course of filming this video, they actually gotten back to us and finalized their dropper design. So I'm really excited to see what that looks like. And again, if you want to go check them out, links are in the description. So a huge thanks to Broken Anvil for supplying us with such cool little toys, and a massive thank you to our sponsor today, Raid Shadow Legends. And of course, we'd all be lost without our lovely patrons. So all the links are in the description, and I will see you next time. Whee! Dwarfs are fun.